Welcome back. If you're just joining, this is CVM Live, the evening edition. We're at the top of the hour. Making the major stories, Jamaican Muslim preacher linked to terror suspects in India. 2 women murdered in separate incidents, and welcome news for UTech. Also coming up, weather. I'll have Inspired Jamaica. There's E-Live with Renee Wilson and Sports Live with Jermaine May. Let's now go to the top story. Investigators in India have established a link between controversial Muslim cleric Sheikh Abdul Al-Faisal and men linked to terrorism in that country. India media have reported that detectives there have unearthed social media chats between 2 suspects and Al-Faisal. Senior officials said in one of the conversations with Al-Faisal, one suspect says, quote, "I am an Indian Muslim," and in another sentence, quote, "I want to die as a martyr," to which Al-Faisal replied, quote, "What are you waiting for?" End quote. Another suspect is reported to have responded, quote, "We need men, money and weapons," end quote. Security sources in India say they have recovered several such conversations between the 2 accused and Al-Faisal. Investigators say they will be writing to their Ministry of Home Affairs to coordinate with Jamaican authorities to facilitate interrogation of Al-Faisal. The radical preacher was arrested in Jamaica in August on an extradition warrant. Back home, the St. James police are investigating the murder of a woman in the Rose Heights community. She is a 30-year-old Deandra Taylor, a construction worker of a Snake Lane address in Rose Heights. Around 6:35 yesterday morning, Ms. Taylor was said to be in her yard cleaning up her car when a man who lives across the road entered the yard and told her she could not drive out the car because it belonged to him. She ignored him and he pulled a knife and stabbed her in her neck. Ms. Taylor was assisted to the Cornwall Regional Hospital where she died. The suspect was later pursued by residents and cornered in a house where the police later removed him. He was taken into custody. CVM understands the suspect has on several occasions brandished sharp weapons and threatened various persons. He's said to be 26 years old and is also a construction worker. Member of Parliament-elect for South St Andrew, Mark Golding, has strongly condemned the recent murder of Keisha Hankel in Craigtown. Mr. Golding notes that Keisha was the victim of a brutal assassination in cold blood, and he calls the death of the young woman, herself a mother, in that fashion despicable and totally unacceptable. Mr. Golding states that the community must reject such a dastardly act and find the courage to do what is necessary to bring those who are behind it to justice. He also calls upon the police to investigate this case thoroughly and relentlessly so that the perpetrators of Keisha's murder are identified and the law can take its course. Mr. Golding adds that development and empowerment in the community cannot take place without order and peace. As more Jamaicans continue to utilize technology to protect their properties, the police need your assistance this evening in identifying a phone thief. Do you know this individual? Look keenly as he surprised a youngster who was at home in Portmore Pines, St. Catherine, on his cell phone. The adult male outpowered the boy, who we understand is 12 years old, and took his cell phone, a Galaxy Duo. Look how easily he scaled the perimeter wall and escaped through the premises next door. The matter was reported to the police, who need your help in not only identifying but also apprehending the man. The incident, which occurred sometime after 10 this morning, has left a schoolboy traumatized and has opened calls for bushing off the municipal boulevard. There's more support for the use of plea bargaining to help reduce the large backlog of cases in the nation's courts. Noted defense attorney Peter Champagny has generated further discussion with his endorsement of the mechanism. Mr. Champagny spoke at last week's town hall meeting on plea bargaining. The act was passed earlier this year.
I can't think of a case where it has yet been utilized, and that is sad. And against that background, the recommendation that I would make, if I can, is that this particular legislation should be a mandatory course at the Norman Manley Law School. It is very important that the lawyers that are graduating are aware of this legislation and do not fall to bad habits that some of the older lawyers have in terms of fighting everything, putting the crown to proof in all the circumstances.
The University of Technology now has approximately 50 programs accredited by the University Council of Jamaica.
38-year-old Corporal Melvin Smith, assigned to the Manchester Community Safety and Security Branch, was shot and killed on Manchester Road while trying to apprehend a suspect in a motorcycle theft on Friday around 8 p.m.
An incident of robbery took place in one of our malls, the Bank House Mall. A man was robbed of his motorcycle, and the culprits, they were challenged by Corporal Smith. It became a running gun battle. He gave chase after these men.
Police Commissioner George Coelho said, quote, "It is unfortunate that while performing his duty to serve, protect and reassure, Corporal Smith was met with such cruelty and callousness." End quote. Superintendent Cameron added that Manchester has lost a well-respected corporal who had a strong relationship with the youth.
He was exceptionally good with our young people, our students, and he had quite a knack for keeping them in line. Corporal Smith was well liked by the staff here because he always has this position, always smiling, always checking to see how the day is, your day is going.
National Security Minister Robert Montague has expressed deep regret at the killing of Corporal Smith, saying it's a very sad day for the constabulary force and Jamaica. Detectives have already launched a high-level investigation into the murder.
We have collected a number of spent shells from the crime scene. It was properly processed up until 2 o'clock this morning. We were still at the scene, going through it. At this time, we are not able to say who the culprits are, but I am assuring his colleagues, I'm assuring my staff, I'm assuring the residents of this parish that we will make a big breakthrough.
I'm Brian Walker for CVM Live.
And within a few days, another police officer was gunned down by criminals. The 35-year-old corporal was attached to the Counter-Terrorism and Organized Crime Investigation Branch, CTOC.
Head of the Counter-Terrorism and Organized Crime Unit, CTOC, ACP Fitz Bailey, today expressed condolences to the family of slain policeman Courtney Linton and condemned the killing. Linton was gunned down at a party in Linstead, St. Catharines, shortly after 12 a.m. on Tuesday.
Our colleague, that's Detective Constable Courtney Linton, has served the constabulary force for 17 years. And I wish to express on behalf of all members of the CTOC branch and the wider JCS our deepest sympathies to his family and friends. The vicious attack on the life of a police or any citizen in this country by criminal elements must be condemned by all. And I must say no society can realize its full potential and economic growth if this level of violence continue unabated. I would suggest, consequently, it is time for all law-abiding citizens to unite to show our intolerance to this monster of crime.
The death of the corporal has brought the number of police deaths to 2 in under a week. ACP Bailey said the recent assault on the police force by criminal elements is a direct attack on the people and requires equal force.
It actually demonstrates that these criminals do not have any concern for the law and for the rule of law. And so what we will do, I can say to the nation at CTOC that we have the resources and we are going to utilize all the resources that we have available to identify those who are responsible for the death of Constable Courtney Linton, whilst we continue to serve our nation and treat with other investigations that are under our charge.
And while some civilians have touted that the war on crime is being won by the criminals, the senior police sought to add a different view.
In a crisis like this, we need to be very swift and be certain with what we do. And we must, as a nation, treat with the crisis with what it deserves. And as a police force, and I know the commissioner and all of us who are senior officers and the entire JCF, we understand the reality, we understand the challenges, and we're up to the challenges. We are going to bring and we're going to break.
Increased its majority in Parliament from 1 to 3 when it convincingly won the South East St. Mary seat in one of 3 by-elections held on Monday. The JLP's Dr. Norman Dunn defeated the PNP's Dr. Shane Alexis by over 900 votes. The PNP's Dr. Angela Brown-Burke comfortably beat the JLP's Victor Hyde in Southwest St. Andrew. And the PNP's Mark Golding also comfortably held off JLP candidate Dane Dennis in South St. Andrew. Our reporter Wayne Walker covered the voting in St. Mary.
Months, weeks and days of crisscrossing the constituency has come down to this, bringing to an end arguably the most pivotal by-election in recent history, if not ever. Well over 25,000 spread over 4 divisions, Belfield, Castleton, Richmond and of course the Heartland and Nutter Bay were registered to exercise their franchise, and based on the latest count, more than 50% of them did so. Our cameras were out with our first stops in Nutter Bay, where voting was slow but steady at the different polling stations. Even then, the mood in the respective camps was one of confidence. Then it was on to the Castleton division, where it was basically the same. Voters just trickling while others who were there for support tried to make their presence felt. It was there that we ran into Robert Montague, who was in charge of the JLP operations in Castleton, and he, even at that stage, believed it was, pun intended, a done deal.
Where we are in Broadgate is a strong traditional PNP area, and we have made significant inroads in this area. And the results will reflect our hard work that we have put in on the ground at the end of the day.
As we were about to head to another division, we spotted a convoy. It was the Prime Minister, more importantly, the JLP candidate, Dr. Norman Dunn, who told us that he did all he could in terms of preparations coming into the big day. Dr. Shane Alexis is a relative newcomer to representational politics, but he's the man trying to, at the very least, protect the PNP's 5-point victory margin garnered from the last general election, or better yet, increase the tally. He spent most of the day in the PNP stronghold of Belfield and was expected to remain there. He appeared untroubled in spite of barbs coming his way from the opposition.
I mean, listen, I walk like a Jamaican, talk like a Jamaican, relate like a Jamaican. I mean, the voters have made up their mind, they're comfortable and properly nominated, and we're standing for the election today. I think at the end of the day, I just focus on my own campaign and my party's management of the situation. So far, I think we've done a good job. We've put forward a message and a vision for the community. Persons are responding, and we see that if the majority does.
And it's interesting to note that neither of the 2 candidates who are seeking to represent the people of this constituency do not have a vote here, but their supporters didn't seem to mind. For CVM Live, I'm Wayne Walker from Nutter Bay in St. Mary.
Meanwhile, there was a predictably comfortable victory for the PNP in Southwest St. Andrew, a seat held for decades by former Prime Minister Portia Simpson Miller. Marjorie Gordon was in the constituency for the by-election.
By-election day for the PNP in Southwest St. Andrew saw the candidate Angela Brown-Burke focus on the task at hand of continuing the legacy of Portia Simpson Miller by trouncing the JLP. Talks that the JLP government would pull all the stops to wrest the seat that was once a JLP stronghold received different responses from Brown-Burke and the woman who held the seat for over 40 years.
Tell them, Portia said, try it. Try it now. If they think they can do it, tell them to try it now. This constituency was transformed from one strong Jamaica Labour Party constituency to one of the strongest People's National Party constituency, with a little young dry foot picnic from country, from Woodhall in St. Catherine. Tell them, try me.
I think it's just a little joke they were making. Don't take them seriously.
No. Sometimes they do things, and when it comes out, people will take it seriously.
Yes.
I'm not into that.
So comrades, even the lame, trickled into the various divisions to ensure the win. Brown-Burke, however, would not say what she expects the voter turnout to be like, adding instead that her team will do what needs to be done. Concerns about the electronic voter system were mentioned, including the fact that it took too long for individuals to be identified, which slows down the voting process.
It delays voting and it creates a kind of bottleneck. People, have to go to work and other things. But we're working with it. I mean, we're going through the day. The other thing that we were concerned about is that some persons, when they actually put their finger there, three pictures came up. And we thought that really should not have happened. Yeah. There were not many, but there were too many for us to be comfortable with. I haven't gotten any reports yet in terms of any of those showing up today. So we're going to watch it and see how it works.
While voter turnout was not much to talk about at the Greenwich Primary School in southwest St. Andrew, Portia Simpson-Miller, the former Member of Parliament and Prime Minister, came to the school to see what was happening on by-election day. She greeted the election day workers and ensured that everything was okay after she had cast her ballot. For the JLP's Victor Hyde, his patriotism is what keeps him coming back to represent the party despite never defeating Simpson-Miller. He is hopeful, though, that a new contender will change his chances at the polls, as he expects to get more than the 702 votes he received in the last general elections.
To be honest, yes, I'm looking forward for more numbers within the voting system. As we have been doing our work and getting the kind of treatment from the entire constituency, warm reception, awesome feeling. If you can see just now, it's just that them feel a sense of relief of certain pressure that they were under.
But it's not just the change in the PNP candidate that will make a difference for Hyde. For him, incidents of coercion that has haunted the constituency for years has been reduced and should provide a positive situation when the ballots are cast.
Intimidation, and it plays a key role within the constituency for the past couple of years, and it is totally over at this present moment. So I think you'll see a better look this time around.
He is hopeful his plans for the constituency will this time around transcend into votes. Marjorie Gordon, CVM Live.
Voting in the other St. Andrew constituency was likewise relatively slow, with a predictable victory for the PNP. Irvin Forbes was in South St. Andrew, where a former PNP senator was up against a young lecturer.
The voter turnout at the locations we visited in South St. Andrew was so low that visually impaired, elderly and wheelchair-bound electors had no difficulty going to cast their ballot. There was a bit of buzz at the Jonestown Primary School where, as expected, there was a predominance of PNP supporters. They were eager to back their first-time candidate, Mark Golding.
Everybody will come good. Everybody, when they PNP will come in that constituency are good. All of them no give me nothing, them good. Come and look hands out. We not do it for the love. We not do it for the love. Do it for the love. We not do it for the
All right, I know I'm do good for it. Yeah. I'm not in a power yet. Yeah. There's a power in coming in power. Jesus, I will tell you. Long time. I'm a do good for me. Why them not slimming on the job when they gone in like precipice? Don't come out. My goal, let me say straight.
Mr. Golding later arrived at the primary school. He was making the rounds, although his vote is not in the constituency. We asked how he assessed the vibe of his supporters.
They are reassuring me that everything is on target, so I'm just looking forward to the day being completed incident-free, and when the tally is done, I expect that we'll put in a good showing.
Okay. Any sign that they're taking things for granted?
No, I don't think so. I mean, there's some areas which are traditionally earlier voters than others, and so we're aware of patterns in the various locations. So we think seems to be going according to plan.
Although there were not many voters, a few were a bit impatient with having to endure the longer process of the electronic voter identification system. By early afternoon, the JLP contender Dane Dennis arrived at the Boys Town Heart Academy to cast his vote. He responded to the question of whether his relative inexperience is a disadvantage.
I'm a lecturer, right? And I'm the dean of a college. That counts. I'm a master's student. Right? So as a matter of fact, I'm a holder of a master's degree. So there's no lack of experience. When we talk about political representation, I've been in Mandeville, I've worked with candidates in Mandeville, I've come to Kingston, I was in two of the youth organization, that be the G2K as well as the Young Jamaica. I've left the G2K and I'm at the Young Jamaica. It's not lack of experience. I have enough experience, right? We can say our opposition doesn't have enough experience as you talk about representational politics on the constituency level. He has never run a campaign before and he has never represented the interests of the people before. He has only been appointed.
The senior members in the JLP team expressed confidence in the young candidate.
And I see an increase over the last council result in the Admiral Town and the Rosetown area divisions. You will see an increase.
I'm hoping that the voters in this constituency will elect him as their MP at the close of today. If not, I am looking forward to the next general election, which might be about 3 years away, that he will become the MP. He's the future of Jamaica. Young, bright, just 28 years old.
As Brian Walker reports, the university is pushing for institutional accreditation.
Students and administrators at the University of Technology have a lot to smile about, as 7 programs, including the Bachelor of Arts in Architectural Studies and the Bachelor of Laws, were recently accredited by the University Council of Jamaica.
The certificates pertain to programs in the Faculty of the Built Environment, the Faculty of Education and Liberal Studies, the College of the Health Sciences, and the Faculty of Law. 7 programs of study were thus recognized by the UCJ. This brings the total number of accredited programs at the university to approximately 50. This is a strong foundation on which to build our application for institutional accreditation.
In March, CVM Live spoke with the chairperson of the University Council of Jamaica, Dr. Caroline Hale, who said the UCJ is trying to facilitate a shift from programmatic to institutional accreditation.
Assessors will come in, they look at your governance structure, they're looking at the finances in terms of understanding that you will have the finances to be able to take an entire cohort from start to finish within that program. They'll be looking at it from an institutional perspective. We're looking at the finances to determine that this institution could withstand at least another 10 years of operation. Because what you don't want to happen is for students to be in a program and the institution collapses. So we look at that. We look at the resources in terms of the faculty or staff that are delivering the program.
Professor Vassiani added that UTech has several infrastructure-related projects.
There are also a number of projects that have started but remain incomplete. These include work on the sculpture park, repairs to leaks in buildings such as the Fells building and the main administration building. And you know, sometimes it has to get worse to get better, right?
I'm Brian Walker for CVM Live.
Now, the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information has issued a policy guideline for schools that are acquiring a third-party school information management system, SIMS. In a bulletin issued by the ministry, it was stated that during the 2016-2017 academic year, 16 schools using a particular system had their security breached by computer viruses. In an effort to ensure future integrity of schools' data, the ministry has developed a policy guideline to establish procedures for the acquisition of external hosting and securing of data on web cloud applications from third-party service providers. Schools are advised to immediately adhere to the guideline, which, if implemented effectively, will minimize unauthorized access to sensitive information on the school's management system. School administrators are encouraged to ensure that when they approach a potential vendor, the vendor has a solid track record, has the necessary skills and capabilities, and possesses the values and traits similar to the institution. And they must consider the vendor's support matrix and how they mesh with the needs of the school and privacy compliance. The valedictorian at the University of the West Indies graduation ceremony on Saturday morning charged his peers to become transformational leaders and redefine who they are as millennials.
Approximately 3,000 individuals graduated from the University of the West Indies on the weekend. Valedictorian for the Faculty of Social Sciences, Roshane Williams, charged graduates to redefine who they are as millennials.
As we look towards creating the global future, let us redefine millennials as being innovative, driven, having the right attitude, ethical, and most importantly, personifying love. The exposure we received at the UE will allow us to seamlessly integrate, compete, and emerge as transformational leaders in the global marketplace. Class of 2017, we know the world can be scary. However, as we embark upon a journey of uncharted paths, we decide how our talents are bestowed upon the world.
Honorary degrees were conferred on Professor Emeritus John Edward Green, Poet Olive Sr., businessmen Anthony Hart and Wesley Hall.
I just want to thank the university for giving me this great honor. I did go to university for 3 months, and this is my 3rd degree. But that is an anomaly, because 76% of the successful people in the world have been to university.
Hart founded multiple companies and played an important role in the development of the Montego Bay Freeport. Now he's focused on philanthropy.
I have the 2 primary schools that I really enjoy and want to see succeed. I am trying to get the bypass road built to Montego Bay, because having built a new highway from Ocho Rios to Kingston, everybody wants to pass through Montego Bay, and we're getting jammed up. And the Prime Minister has announced that. I want to see that the plains of St. Elizabeth are irrigated, because they can feed Jamaica.
I'm Brian Walker for CVM Live.
Former People's National Party Member of Parliament Marjorie Taylor was laid to rest yesterday. Ms. Taylor served as junior minister, senator, parish councillor and also as ambassador for children. She passed away in mid-October after a period of illness at the age of 67. Officials from both political parties paid tributes to Ms. Taylor.
She loved children personally, and she practiced her commitment. And indeed, to give substance to her commitment, she became an adoptive parent herself.
She started as a building officer in the KSAC. As a matter of fact, in 1971, she was employed in the City Engineers Department. And 4 years after, she went on to become the first female building officer in the history of the Kingston and St. Andrew Corporation. Her contribution to local government goes without question.
Coming Marjorie was a great disciple, as you've heard before, and worker of Michael Manley in his capacities as Member of Parliament, President of the PNP, and Prime Minister of Jamaica. She and Joshua developed a special bond with which nobody dared to intervene. In fact, anyone who was foolish enough